that dude.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, bringing in the man himself, former manager of the great, legendary Four Horsemen. Like we mentioned before, he's a two-time Hall of Famer, class of 2012 WWE Hall of Fame, class of 2013 Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, former worker with Vince McMahon, working in the WWE, was WWF back then. He's done so much in the business. Bringing in now, live, J. Dillon. Welcome.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Was that intro good enough for you? Was it too long?
Wow,
too short?
I was getting excited. No, I appreciate all the compliments.
No problem. We thank you, JJ, for coming back onto the show. Definitely is an honor to have you on, and all of our fans are definitely excited to have you back.
Thank you, guys. Always good to be on Under the Mat Radio.
No, yeah. Thank you.
NSC Gameboy?
Well, I want to say, and start off with my first question to you, and it's probably a question you heard very often. In the business right now, we don't see a lot of people inspiring to be managers. We all see people who want to be performers and athletes and just wrestlers, but we don't really see any managers anymore. And I want to know your thoughts on that concept of why managing is kind of dying off in the sport of wrestling.
Well, let me start by commenting that as a youngster who fell in love with professional wrestling, my dream was to be a wrestler, and that was my focus right from day one. And of course, many twists and turns along the way. It ended up I was a referee on a part-time basis for 8 years before I got a chance to put the tights on and get in the ring. And I wrestled on a part-time basis for 3 years before I got a chance to go full-time and be what I always dreamed I would be, which was a full-time wrestler. And at that point, I was 28 years old. I wasn't a kid. And I wrestled full-time for 5 years and really didn't entertain the thought of being a manager, though I was approached by the Mongolian Stomper, and again, a lot of success in this business in particular, and in life in general, is just right place, the right time. And I had seen the Stomper up in the Canadian Maritimes where I got my first break, and from there I went to Amarillo for a year, and then went to Florida, and he was wrestling in Florida at the time, and left, and had a chance to go in as a main eventer in Dallas and needed a manager, and he's the one that called me and asked me if I had ever given any thought to it. And in all honesty, I hadn't. But as I reflect back in hindsight, I was never blessed with, a body like, a powerful body like Bruno Sammartino or a Superstar Graham or an Ultimate Warrior or Lex Luger. And to be honest with you, I didn't particularly like going to the gym and working out. And my strongest suit were my interviews, and that's what I worked the hardest at. So it was a natural transition. And once given the opportunity, one door closes behind you and another opens in front of you. And yet I still had 5 years' experience as a wrestler that I think benefited me in my managerial career. So my focus originally was to be a wrestler, but then whether I was a referee, a wrestler, or a manager, I always wanted to be the absolute best that I could be. And I think the business today is not so much lack of interest of people wanting to be a manager, because I get approached when I go to appearances or an independent show, and a guy will come up and say, I'm trying to make it as a manager. Can you give me any advice? And I try to help them and give them encouragement, and because there is no real formula for being a successful manager. When you look back at the history of wrestling managers that were successful, whether it's Bobby the Brain Heenan, that I always regard as the absolute best and the one that set the bar by which the rest of us are measured. But you look at him, you look at Playboy Gary Hart, you look at Jim Cornette, you look at Lou Albano, myself. There's not a, we're all different. And Jimmy Hart, he's just a bundle of energy. So I think it's more a case in the business has gone different directions. And back in the day, you had these bigger-than-life, I would call them monsters for lack of anything else, like the Mongolian Stomper, like Abdullah the Butcher, like the Sheik. And they were tailor-made to have someone be a mouthpiece for them. They were more impactful by not speaking. And nowadays the business has gotten away from that, and just when they thought managing was dead, along comes Brock Lesnar, who can talk, but he, I think, is more effective when he doesn't talk. And in Paul Heyman, he has got one of the absolute best in the history of the business.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you, JJ. Thank you very much for elaborating my point. Toph?
Hello, Mr. Dillon. It's a great pleasure to talk to you, but I think it's time we all address the awkward elephant in the room. Let's go back to WCW, and let's talk about the stories when Sting wasn't talking, and then you proceeded to come out each week trying to talk to Sting, and no one knew what Sting wanted. My dad got me into wrestling, and he always said that an authority figure does their job when you scream at the TV. And I just wanted you to know that as a kid, I wanted to throw a Coke at your head because the fans were chanting Hogan Sting, and you were like, Sting, here's a match with Kurt Hennig, here's a match with Six, here's a match with Scott Hall, and you did it week after week after week, even though there was a sign that said Sting versus Hogan right in front of you, and it drove me absolutely crazy. So I just want to say, you're the first manager, authority figure I ever saw that literally made me want to throw a bottle at the TV, and you don't get credit for it. And I just want to thank you for that, sir.
Well, that was a left-handed compliment, I think, if I ever saw one. But, I have people come up to me at personal appearances, and, a lot of times they bring their children who weren't even born when I was in my heyday, and they come up to me and that first words out of their mouth, I hated your guts. And, my reaction is kind of the same, that, I must have been doing something right to elicit that kind of emotion from you. And again, that was my role, was sometimes to be effectively stupid without looking like I was a complete idiot. And just all it was doing was building interest to the ultimate confrontation between Sting and Hulk Hogan.
That was a great time of the Monday Night Wars when you were playing that role. If you can, JJ, talk to us about working in WCW at that time, during the Monday Night Wars. Was it hectic for you? What changes was it working in WCW around that time as opposed to when you were when Crockett owned it, when it was NWA, when you was with the Horsemen?
Well, I have to be totally honest with you. The pinnacle of my career, of course, was the glory years with the Horsemen, and as a leader of the Horsemen, I mean, we just had a chemistry that is, often comes along once in a lifetime, and none of us certainly ever could have imagined that it would become as big as it became or last as long as it did. And that's when it happens, boy, you don't want it to end. And it eventually, as my career wound down, I ended up with WCW, and I had experience of 40-some years in the business when I got there, and as I looked around, there were a lot of things that I was very concerned about. The one thing that concerned me the most was there was a broadcast company that had tremendous financial resources. They had the ability to market. They had the ability to take programming and package it with other things and benefits that didn't exist before with say Crockett Promotions that was just a wrestling a promotion, and yet the one thing that was lacking was that you didn't have that quote unquote wrestling person who had come through their career focusing totally on wrestling. They were a broadcast company, and the wrestling division was just one very, very small part of it. And they just happened to have a period of good fortune because Eric Bischoff got in there and sold them a bill of goods, and you didn't have that Vince McMahon or someone like that who knew, even though they were winning the ratings war for an extended period of time, they were paying a price for doing that. And by that I mean the production costs were just astronomical. And the fact that Eric Bischoff, as the head of the company, again, didn't have an extensive wrestling background. And he was manipulated by the talent, and he ended up giving big, huge guaranteed contracts because it wasn't his money. He was writing some with somebody else's checks. And though they were getting ratings and winning the ratings war for quite a while, I have to give them credit in that sense. They weren't well-rounded as a company in that live events, pay-per-view, merchandise marketing, all the other revenue streams. It was strictly ratings. And the people, because it was a broadcast company, looked at the ratings and thought, oh, the ratings are great, and we're outdrawing the quote-unquote, great Vince McMahon, and so everything must be okay. But there was a price to pay for it because they didn't have any long-term plan. And eventually, I'm sure Vince McMahon had some sleepless nights wondering where it was all going to play out, but eventually gave Eric Bischoff enough rope, and as we all know how it ended up playing out, that pretty soon, with all those big fat guaranteed contracts and no viable revenue streams, you ended up with a company with incredible losses, and now the company that owned it was not in their thing was not in the wrestling business. And then somebody said, with these losses, it's just one of our divisions that we don't need anymore, and wrestling went away, and it was a sad day. It was a sad day because Ted Turner had protected it for years. He truly, in his heart, loved wrestling, going back to when he took a UHF station and had this dream of going and becoming national, let alone global. And when you look back at the beginning, he had minimal clearances when he first started, but it was all based around wrestling, Andy Griffith, and the Atlanta Braves that were horrible at that time. Their stands were empty. And if you ask Ted Turner, in the order, wrestling was number one. So it was sad that it worked out that way. Plus you had 70-some guys that were making a living in the wrestling business, and when the company went under, they were no longer employed. It was a sad day. And for me to be there, even though Kevin Sullivan and I were kind of put on the shelf, so I was not responsible for the last year plus, and nor was Kevin in the decisions that were made, and yet I was there and I was being paid, and so as the commissioner or whatever else I was asked to do, I always, anything that I ever did, if you were paying me, you're going to get 100% effort from me, even if I don't necessarily agree with what you're doing and the direction you're going. I'm going to do everything you ask of me and give you my best effort.
I'm glad that you, JJ, put forth your effort, even to this day, put forth your all, which, of course, is something that, I'm sure, would you say, before I turn it back over to NSC Gameboy, what would you say set you apart from all the other legendary managers? Of course, you was around with the Jim Cornettes, and you had the Gary Harts, and, you had shout out to, Paul Ellering with the Road Warriors. You was around the NWA. You had all these other great legends, and of course WWF. The great Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart. What set you apart, and how was it for you in your career? How was it for you to really put your game out there even the most to stand out from all these other greats?
Well, like I say, there was no cookie-cutter formula for being a successful manager. Everybody had their own style. And for me, my style was always less is more. That I looked at my role as not one of drawing all the attention on me, because the judge and jury with anything was always the wrestling fan. They either bought a ticket or subscribed to a pay-per-view if it was something that you were putting out there that they wanted to see. And they were the judge and jury. And so I just knew how to put the importance on the people that they were buying tickets to see, and my job was to compliment them, and that's what I always tried to do. And I think in the back of my mind, I go back to early in my career when, the regional territories, and a lot of times they only had, small nucleuses of, 12, 14, 15 guys full-time working the territory, and guys would rotate, come in and out. And so wrestling was always cyclical, and there were times when everybody was working hard, but, whatever you were doing at the time just, maybe wasn't as hot as it was 6 months before that. And there was always that thing in the back of your mind, well, the promoter's going to look when times are tough and expect everybody to, you're going to be rewarded when things are good, but when things are tough, you're going to have to tighten your belt. And a lot of guys, I think, that were managers figured, well, they need at least 2 wrestlers to have a match and a referee, so that's 3. And if there's a manager standing on the outside and I have to look to see where I'm going to cut back, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out, well, if I don't have the manager, I can still have a match and hopefully, get my business turned around. So I think a lot of guys in those situations went out and did, outrageous, over-the-top things to draw attention to themselves because, if things got tough, I want the promoter to think that, I'm not expendable. And for me, because I had that wrestling, I had 3,200 and some professional matches throughout my career. So if things got really tough, I could work a match on the card until things got turned around. So that gave me kind of a confidence to know that I didn't have to go out there and be over the top and be the focus of attention, that I can let my guys do it. So that was kind of where I'm going when I say, for me personally, less is more. And it always worked well for me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. NSC Gameboy?
I want to go back to the topic we were talking about, Eric Bischoff, and I wanted to know if you had to compare the order of Eric Bischoff and Vince Jr. and Vince Sr., who would you work for right now, and who would you work least? You had to pick those 3 in an order. I'm just curious to know, who.
Well, you could take the biggest, fattest pair of scissors or a samurai sword, and you could take the name of Eric Bischoff and just lop it off the bottom. Because I'm kind of shocked that you would ask me a question and even mention him in the same sentence with Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. I knew Vince Sr. From my days when I started as a referee. I was in eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and Philadelphia in particular was my one regular spot. And they had a big show once a month, and Vince Sr. would come to that show. He would be there, and I got to be around him. He knew me, by name, and always was very friendly to me. And in fact, it was years and years later when I was working in Florida, and I had, as a kid, had gone to the Garden to see the the Graham brothers, Dr. Jerry and Eddie Graham. And, of course, one of my dreams was, boy, wouldn't it be great someday if I could wrestle in myself in Madison Square Garden. That was probably the thing that maybe even more than going to Japan or going to Australia would have been like a measuring stick of success if I can say, hey, I wrestled in Madison Square Garden. And it was kind of later in my career, I was wrestling some, but more as a manager. And I remember I was working in the office and Eddie Graham came in, and I used to treasure those moments when Eddie would come in and I could sit there one-on-one and just absorb whatever conversation, whatever he wanted to talk about. And on that particular day, I just, I said, wow, it seems like just yesterday where I was sitting out in the audience in the Garden and seeing Dr. Jerry and Eddie Graham, and boy, now here we are. And my dream was maybe someday myself to say that I wrestled in Madison Square Garden. And Eddie said, that would have been something really important to you, wouldn't it? And I said, yeah, it really would have. But, the business has been good to me, and this, of course, was before the Horsemen and all that. But I said it's, later in my career, and I wrestle, but, I'm thought of more as a manager. And the conversation went on and didn't think anything more about it. And a day or so went by, and Eddie came in the office, and he said, you're booked on the next show in the Garden. And that date was Monday, April 23rd of 1984. And he said, and what he did was, and this was right when Vince Jr. was kind of expanding and taking over the company, and Vince Sr. was terminally ill, passed away shortly thereafter from lung cancer, and he had a home in Florida in the winter, and Eddie Graham called him and told him. And Vince said, I remember him very well, and he said, if I would love to do this for him. And so Eddie Graham called Vince Sr., and that's how I got booked on Madison Square Garden that night. Made my dream come true. So,
that's magical.
I had so much respect for Senior, and yet, when my career wound down, and I'm 44 years old, and the run with the Horsemen had pretty well gone by. Tully and Arn had left to go up to be the Brainbusters with Bobby the Brain Heenan, and the glory years of the Horsemen were over, and Crockett was bought out. It was right as Crockett was bought out by Turner to save the programming, and I was very uncertain about the direction of anything, and I got a call from Tully, who was up there, and said, they're running 3 tours a night, and all the matchmaking and TV booking and everything is done by Vince and Pat Patterson, and they need help. And he said, there's some people up here that have worked with you that have said some complimentary things, and they're very interested in you. And he said, I don't know what your situation is, but he said, if you make a call, and of course I did make that call, and eventually this was like, October of 88, and February I was, Christmas I was in New York, and Vince sent a car into New York, into Manhattan to pick me up, and I actually had a meeting at his home so that it would be kept quiet, no one would know that we even met, and and he said that I would hope that you would consider this, and it was, you walk off camera, I'm not hiring you as J.J. Dillon, the television personality. I'm hiring you for your other things that you have to offer, your attention to detail, your career, whatever creative input that you have. And so here my career went full circle from Vince Sr. when I was first starting as a referee, and now here's Vince. This is 2 years after the big one in the Pontiac Silverdome, and here's Vince Jr. basically offering me a job, and I took it and walked off camera, and I spent almost 8 years there, and it was difficult at times because he's not the easiest guy to work for, but I learned so much, and at this stage of my life, Hall of Fame, when I first started wrestling, the Hall of Fame was baseball, Cooperstown. There was no wrestling Hall of Fame. So for me to have spent, 50 years of my life in some form or another involved in professional wrestling, and to have 2 Hall of Fame rings pretty much validates everything that I ever wanted to be, and the fact that I'm in the WWE Hall of Fame carries a lot of status, and the fact that I'm in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, where the people that you are in the business with, your name goes on a ballot, and there's actually a voting process. And I think the greatest honor in life that you have, no matter what you do, is if the people that you worked with look at your body of work and feel that you deserve that kind of recognition. That honor means just as much to me, believe it or not. And last year, for the first time, I went to Waterloo, Iowa. I'd heard so much about the Trago Spez, the Hall of Fame up there that's part of the Dan Gable Museum. And I went up there and was just blown away by what, I wrestled as an amateur. I wasn't very good, I admit that, but I always realized the importance of professional wrestling and how it's another tool in your toolbox. And as a professional, if you have amateur experience, you can incorporate that and make you a better professional. So I went up there last year, and I'm going back again this year in July. I'm very much looking forward to going there. Of course, I go to Cauliflower Alley. This will be 11 years in a row since I became a lifetime member, and I'm on the board with the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame up in Amsterdam, which is the only present brick-and-mortar museum. And if you have never been there, it's a fabulous place that's not aligned with any federation. There's people from other promotions all over the world, and there's things that have been presented, belts, wrestling gear, robes, pictures, posters, an incredible place to go visit.
Yeah, make a trip. Yeah, we gotta make a trip out there.
I always said that any baseball fan has to go to Cooperstown, to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I say that any true wrestling fan has to go to Amsterdam. You can go to my website and there's pictures, and you can see the pictures, or you can go to pwhf.org, which is their website, and they've got some pictures and video, but you have to physically go there and see it and walk around. And every time I go back, there's something that I didn't see last time, and it's open on weekends. And if you made a trip up there, Tony Villano is a wonderful, wonderful human being. That he's the one that made all this happen. And if you made a trip from some other part of the country and got up there and the museum wasn't open during the week, if you called, Tony Villano would drive down from his home and open the door so that you could go in and see it. That's the kind of place it is.
Well, I'm a big baseball fan, so I definitely got to go to Cooperstown. But I know
it's about 45 minutes from Cooperstown. You could plan a vacation and take in the Baseball Hall of Fame as Cooperstown, and go up to outside of Albany to Amsterdam, New York, to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I would say that you have to go there and see it for yourself.
Yeah, we definitely going to have to do that. Definitely going to do that. We got to give a shout out, since you're a part of the Cauliflower Alley, a good personal friend of ours, and professional friend, Brian Blair, good buddy of ours, and Bill Anderson. And I know they do a lot of dealings with Cauliflower Alley Club as well.
No,
so
Bill,
we got to give them a shout out.
A long time ago, of course, Brian I knew as an active wrestler, and he was the Killer Bees, and then I lived in Tampa twice, so I was around Brian a lot, and he's has been, this is his first year as the president. He's doing an outstanding job. He's got a lot of contacts in the business, and they're making some changes, and everything has to have a fresh approach sometime. And Brian's just doing an outstanding job, and I totally support him and the effort of everybody to make Cauliflower Alley. In fact, last year was their 50th anniversary of when it first started with Iron Mike DiBiase, and the last couple of years, I, along with Terry Funk, have been the MC for the awards banquet on Wednesday night. It's usually a 3-day affair, and last year for the 50th anniversary. They expanded and they squeezed more people in there somehow and had the biggest attendance that they ever had. There were like 750-some people in there for the dinner at the Gold Coast Hotel. So I'm looking forward to coming back this year. Like I say, I became a lifetime member 10 years ago, and so this will be my 11th year coming back.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to seeing our show and company making a trip to Cauliflower Alley too, definitely in the future. Now, we got a lot of fan questions and fans calling in. If it's okay, we start asking some fan questions, JJ, if that's fine with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. What time we have left? Let's take some questions.
Sure. Yeah, a couple of fans wanted to know. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to all the fans that's been inboxing me, inboxing us, and emailing us and tweeting us too. Some fans want to know, JJ, what are your thoughts of watching Charlotte on WWE Raw? Charlotte Flair.
Well, I was with Rick when she, at the time that she first came into the world. So I mean, I've known her from being a infant, not much bigger than a baby in the palm of your hand, to growing up and to see what she's doing today. And I'm so proud of her. I know Rick is proud. I'm happy for Rick, happy for Charlotte too. And I'm not surprised because Rick is an incredible athlete. He's a genetic freak, and the fact that she has his blood and DNA flowing through her doesn't surprise me that she's demonstrated the great talent that she has in the limited time that she's been out there. And I think it's a very smart thing that the WWE is doing with the effort in Orlando with their developmental center and the NXT and Triple H's. That's kind of been his little project, and it's blossomed out that when they came into the New York area for SummerSlam last year, they ran some separate dates with just the NXT talent and did sell out business to the point that they're going to come back, I think, for this year and next year and run in the same venue in the New York area where they can run the NXT, and it gives these guys and girls a chance to have exposure, because these are the stars of the future of tomorrow. So I'm very proud of Charlotte. She's just an incredible athlete, and of course, knowing her since she was a tiny baby makes me that much prouder. And my friendship all these years with Rick, I know how proud he is too.
Got some more. Just gonna start asking. We got a bunch, so I'm just gonna ask all the questions. Fans, please don't feel any type of way if I don't mention your name, but you know who you are once you hear these questions. JJ Dillon, can you let us know some crazy nights working in NWA with the Four Horsemen?
Well, I look back sometimes, and I did a week in the life of Horsemen for Kayfabe Commentaries. It was a release that they did, and they just took a week and just said, "Here's the week." And I happened to have my old journals, and I pulled it out, and the whole episode was built around, my recollections. Now, it's very, very hard for you to take 1 week 25 years ago back and remember a lot of specifics. And as I tried my best to, answer questions, and it was probably the most difficult type of interview that I ever had to do, for the simple reason that it was such a great time in my life. But in terms of remembering specifics of what you did on any given night was very difficult. But one thing that I do remember is I had my date planner. I leafed through it, and that given week, we wrestled all 7 days. We did a TV Saturday morning, and we flew somewhere and wrestled that night, and then did a matinee on Sunday and somewhere Sunday night. So we were wrestling 9 times in a week, and then I'd leaf through, and I said, "Oh, that was wow, that week," and then, "Well, this next week was same way. And I remember going ahead, I want to say that it was like 7 weeks before I saw one day off somewhere. So I think today, the modern athlete, if you told them that you were wrestling, 7 days a week and 9 times a week and doing so for like 7 weeks where you were on the road away from your family a lot, they would think you were crazy, let alone the fact of the lifestyle of, traveling, which we did. We had great chemistry. We enjoyed our company with each other, and we had to be the first ones in the arena, and then we had the dressing room time before we went to the ring. And the greatest part, of course, was the bell to bell with what we did in the ring in front of the people. And then Flair was notoriously slow getting dressed and always wore a suit and tie, and he'd always go on TV and tell the people what the hot spot in town was, and we would head there and have a line waiting for us. And as I look back, I don't remember sleeping. And it was just an incredible time in my life, and I'm amazed that I didn't kill enough brain cells that I was able to still have a reasonable, lucid conversation with you as we're having right now. And today I don't know that I could do it, and I'm amazed as I look back that I did it then, but I had a good time. Geez, I had a good time. And if we had a few days off around the holidays, and we were all living in Charlotte at the time, we all got together with our families. And you would think as much time as we spent together that we would look for that moment where we could be away from each other, and it worked the opposite way. So it was a magical time in terms of telling stories. As I look back, it was all a blur, but it was also the greatest time in my life, and I wouldn't trade one minute of it for anything.
Thank you for that. Another question, JJ. Why is working for Vince McMahon so difficult? This is from Josh from North Carolina.
Well, Vince is a 24/7 person, and by that, and I think to be a success in the business, you have to be geared, 24 hours a day. I mean, Vince used to have a pad and a pencil next to his bed, and if he woke up in the middle of the night because he had an idea, he would turn the light on and write it down for fear that come morning he would forget about it. So he didn't believe in taking vacations. And I thought, it's good sometimes to get away, not because you get burnt out or that your passion for the business is any less. I just think it's healthy sometimes, no matter what you do in life, sometimes to get away and just to kind of recharge your batteries, and then a lot of times you come back to whatever you're doing, and now you've got a different perspective on, and you see things differently. But Vince was just a total workaholic. The other thing that was different about Vince is when I worked, because I started late in the business, with all the regional promotions that I went to, and I was, exposed to some of the true great minds in the business, and each one I learned something from, and I got involved, and I was involved with talent travel, with the booking of towns and promotion and what have you. And now when I got to what was then the WWF, where I used to do many of these things on a much, much smaller scale, now they had professionals that their sole job was that one specific segment, whatever it was. And they weren't necessarily a wrestling fan or a wrestling person, but they were an expert in whatever their particular field was. And the only thing that Vince ever said was, you don't have to be a wrestling fan, but you need to watch the product and be familiar with the product. And Vince was hands-on with every single aspect of the business. And from what I see, he still is today. I mean, I went to, when Dusty passed away, they had a tribute on the network and asked me to come in and after Raw in Chicago and sit on a panel with Arn and with Rick and a couple other people and just kind of talk about our memories of Dusty. And it had been a long night, and the next day Vince and Hunter were going to Tampa for whatever they were taping. Then one of their shows the next day, they were getting on a jet that night, and I was, we had a conversation earlier about what Vince was looking for in that 1 hour, because it was live, tribute to Dusty, and he wanted it to be upbeat and talk about the good times and not have it be a somber situation. And when it came time to do it, when we looked up, there's Vince back there behind the cameras with a headset on, and he was involved and stayed there for the whole hour that we did. So that kind of is an example, even after all these years, of how involved he is in it. And a lot of times when you work for somebody like that, it can be physically draining because you're trying to keep up with them, and I think trying to keep up with Vince McMahon maybe is an impossible task.
Thank you for that. We have another question from one of our staff members, Afro-Century Queen. She says, do you think Shane McMahon will ever return to WWE?
Wow, that's a great question, and I don't know. When I worked there, I was in the office as an executive all week, involved with travel, involved with arena booking, involved with talent relations aspects, and handling problems and payroll and what have you, and seeing that everything got followed through on, and really all of the creative in terms of long range planning, in terms of matchmaking, and actually they were running 3 towns a night, was all done on the weekends in a casual atmosphere, in casual clothes at Vince's home. It would be Pat, Vince, and I, and in the summer we would be out on the veranda by his pool. He'd have a bank of phones out there. And in the wintertime we would be in their formal dining room. So he just, I learned so much in this business. No matter how long you've been in it or how much success you've had, I mean, if you're really committed to it and you really have had any success, you never stop learning. 2 things. I started as a fan, and I'm a fan to this day. And I never, ever figured that I knew it all, that I had it all figured out, because that's impossible. You never stop learning because the business changes too. And you have to be able to recognize change and be able to adapt and go with it, which it's amazing, what the WWF has become to WWE, and WrestleMania has become, the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. And they're people, it's a global, they talk about their global audience, their global, and it's true, they're all over the world. And there are people that come from all over the world, and there are people that maybe aren't fans that watch wrestling week to week, every week, but there are people that will not miss WrestleMania. So they've built something that's, and I always said, too, that I was never in 100% agreement with any promoter that I ever worked for, even some of the most brilliant people. And so I was never in complete agreement with Vince either, so that's not unusual, and I think that's what makes the business so great. Pat Patterson used to say, if you walk into Baskin Robbins, they don't have just one flavor of ice cream that everybody comes in and either gets a cup or a cone. They've got however many flavors it is, and he said, you may like chocolate, I may like strawberry, somebody else may like butter pecan, but it's all good. So it's not like one is the best, it's whatever your personal taste is. And I think that's a good kind of analogy of what professional wrestling is about. And creatively, a lot of ideas get thrown around, and sometimes you think, wow, this is going to be so hot, it's going to be red hot, it's going to be the greatest thing, and it never comes to fruition for whatever the reason. And then something that you think, well, this person's over on the shelf because there's nothing really hot for them at the time, and all of a sudden they just catch on fire. And a Daniel Bryan is a great example of that. There was something about him, and the ultimate, as I've said before, judge and jury is the wrestling fan. And in every interview that I do, before I'm done, I always say that whatever success I had was not because I was the biggest or the best. I had the desire. I had the perseverance. I had a tremendous amount of help from a lot of people along the way. And then the one thing that can be very elusive is luck. You have to sometimes just have sheer luck of being in the right place at the right time, which is what happened with me, with the Four Horsemen. I was the right place at the right time. But again, it wasn't because I was great or as great as the individuals were that they weren't great too. It was the fans who came out to see us and bought the tickets. And I always say about Rick that it's easy to go out when you got 15 or 20,000 people in an arena, and we would go to a town and maybe be expecting 10,000 people, and there's 3,000 people there because for whatever the reason the TV got preempted that week. And Rick would go, and a lot of guys I've seen in the past would say, well, this is a night where the crowd's not what we thought it was going to be, and we'll just kind of take it easy. Well, that wasn't our mindset, because Rick felt this way, and we all individually felt this way too, that there was an expectation of those people that were there. They bought a ticket coming expecting to see something. So we had an obligation to go out there and give them the same effort that we did if there were 20,000 of them. And I think over a period of time that was part of maybe why we were successful, because the fans knew no matter where we were, what arena, big, small, that if the Horsemen were there, either individually or all together in a War Games or whatever it would be, that they were going to get every ounce that we had on any given night, and they respected us for that.
Yeah. Okay, Tech, you okay? Okay, well, Mr. Dillon, I want to thank you for sharing that and everything. I'm more happy to understand it and know that. Oh, with that wrong pipe, okay.
Is he all right?
I'm going to say, you good, man? Oh, I mean, okay. Tech, you okay?
Maybe we've been on a long time, so maybe it's time to wind it down. But
I'm good.
You guys
Joe. I went down the wrong pipe.
Talked about a myriad of things, and really pretty much a broad stroke of my career. My autobiography sold out, the original hard copy, first edition. It's available on a reprint. You can go to Amazon.com, and it's even out on Kindle too. But again, I owe so much to the fans. To me, the wrestling fans are the greatest fans in the world, and whatever success J.J. Dillon had, whatever success the Four Horsemen had, whatever success professional wrestling as a form of something to go out and buy a ticket to see, the wrestling fans are the best. They are the absolute best everywhere in the world.
Yes, JJ, it's been an honor. I do apologize. Ed went down the wrong pipe, so I'm okay. Thanks to the Gameboy for this. Had to do the hot tag. Had to do the hot tag.
I've enjoyed it, and again, I have the same passion that I had 50 years ago. A lot of times you ask a question, and I get on a run, and it's just that passion that I have for the business comes out. But I know I had a chance to be on Under the Mat Radio previously, enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed this visit with you guys too, and I want to wish you continued success, and maybe I'll see you either out at Cauliflower Alley or hopefully up at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And if you guys in July get out to Waterloo, that is a fantastic place to It's a great museum, and the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame wing that they have there is a special place too. And I was so impressed that even though last year was the first time I ever went, I'm going back again there in July as well.
Oh, no doubt. Thank you for the compliments.
All right, guys. Thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation, and hope to see you somewhere down the line. If anybody's up in the New York area, there is an event coming up called the Big Event in November, and I'm going to be there along with Tully, Arn, and Barry. It's on Saturday, November 14th, out at the LaGuardia Airport. And there's like the who's who. They've got, I think, the Heartbreak Kid is even there. And it's just a lot of old friends, and I look forward to going to things like that too. But it's very seldom that you can even get four of the Horsemen together at one time. So it's kind of like a mini Horseman reunion, and I look forward to going to New York. And I live in Delaware, and on the way home there's also an event that night with Maryland Championship Wrestling in Joppa, and I'm going to manage to get back in time to stop by there and say hello to all the fans of Maryland too. So I don't do very many appearances anymore, but when I do get a chance to get out, I really, really enjoy it, because it's a chance for me to. We were always insulated years ago with the fans. We came in the back door, left by the back door, and didn't get a chance to see them and see the fans. And Cauliflower Alley, the Hall of Fame, and some of these fan fests have given us an opportunity to meet the fans face to face and have them, remember their whatever it happens to be, and ask their questions. And I always take away from that more than I give. So I'm looking forward to going up to the Big Event on November 14th, and hope to see you guys maybe next day for All Out in Vegas at Cauliflower Alley too.
Hey, JJ, real quick. We got somebody who's live now that wanted to speak to you. Go ahead.
JJ, long time no talk, buddy. What's going on? This is Vinny the Guido from New York.
How are you, my friend?
Not bad, my brother. I haven't spoken to you in a few years. I had you as a guest on my old radio podcast back in the day. What's going on, man?
Well, like I say, I've kind of cut back. Father Time has slowed me down a little bit, but I've been very, very, very lucky that I've been blessed with good health, and life has been good to me, and I have all these wonderful memories, and it's like conversations like this where we talk about, the good times, and I'm so thankful that my time, I call it the glory years of wrestling, for my career was when it just was a wonderful, wonderful time to be in the business. And
you could say that again, glory years indeed, man, because let me tell you something. I mean, other than NXT and what's your thoughts on NXT?
Well, as I said earlier, I think it's the future of the business. It's where you're seeing maybe a little bit different approach. The people that are there aren't under the microscope and having the same pressure as those that are up on the main roster in the WWE, and so they get a chance to get out in front of the people and if they stumble, it's not the end of the world, and it's also a chance for, as everybody found out last year. I mean, they, had just an NXT a couple of shows up there in the New York area built around SummerSlam, and those events sold out. So that's great for the confidence of these young guys, because it's like anything else. You got to get out in front of the people if you're going to be a success at your trade.
Exactly. Now, I see you're going to be at WrestleCade, right? Yes,
that's true. I forgot. How can I forget about that? Yeah, the same four of us, which is again a rare occasion. I will be in Winston-Salem. That event is just grown leaps and bounds every year.
Well, I'll be seeing you there too, my brother, because the Gimmick Tree Entertainment's going to have our table there also. So I'll make sure I stop by your table and say what's up.
Yeah, that's on Saturday, November 28th. So I will be there. Tully will be there. Arn will be there. Barry Windham will be there. And,
hell yeah. Tracy Myers is a good dude, man. Tracy Myers is a good dude. He's been running WrestleCade. This is the 4th WrestleCade now.
Yeah, and I was there 2 years ago, and it's just it's gotten huge and grown bigger and bigger every year. So I look forward to seeing you, my friend. See you in Winston-Salem.
Absolutely, my brother. Be good. God bless. Talk to you soon.
All right. And, again, thank you, everybody, under the Mat Radio for having me on as a guest. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, JJ. We greatly appreciate it, man. Y'all take care.
All right.